A new poll by Newsweek put the president's approval rating at just 30%. That's the lowest in the history of that poll. We know people are unhappy about Iraq, but the stock market is going strong and economic indicators are good. But is the president getting the credit he deserves for the economy? Joining me now, Jack Berkman, attorney and Republican strategist, and Christian Weller, the senior economist at the Center for American Progress. Gentlemen, welcome. A pleasure to have you here.
Sue, good to see you.
Jack, I assume that you think the president is not getting the credit that he should. Why not?
Well, I just think the country is in a very negative mode. We've kind of lost perspective. There's all of this hyper-focus on Iraq. The reality is, in a $13 trillion economy, it's almost heresy to say this, Iraq is not costing us that much. The comparisons to Vietnam are really fallacious. The economy was much, much smaller then. I mean, people say the U.S. economy is coming along, that it's arriving. It couldn't be doing much better. I mean, you've got a Dow at 12,500. More than 50% of Americans, 50, own equities. You have a society where you have almost 10 million millionaires. I mean, people talk about this. All of these people are demagoguing the war on the middle class and the shrinking middle class. I mean, what a joke that is. This is the first time in history that the American middle with real estate has hundreds of thousands of dollars of net worth.
All right. So, Christian, I mean, that's a pretty compelling argument, is it not? Why is the president not getting credit for a Dow over 12,000 and some of the other things that Jack just mentioned?
Well, the first thing is I think we need to realize that the families are experts on their own finances, and clearly they're not happy with the economy. And the question is not whether the economy can do much better or the stock market can do much better. The question is whether incomes can do much better, and they haven't really risen that much. They're actually down. 2005 incomes for a typical family are $1,300 less than they were in 2000 in inflation-adjusted terms. Yes, home ownership is up slightly. It actually has declined in 2005 relative to 2004, but people also have borrowed a lot more money to make ends meet. People are struggling to make ends meet in this economy where the labor market is not performing well, where prices are going out of control.
I just don't understand.
And then I think that's really the piece really that what drives people's uncertainties, because the flip side of a debt boom is that families are less well prepared than they were in the past if anything goes wrong. And I think that really has people
Jack, we do hear a lot, though, about the middle class getting squeezed. And, just take, for instance, the president's health care initiative the other night in the State of the Union. You can view it as perhaps helping the lowest income people, but you can also view it as a tax hike in the middle class.
Well, you have to understand, Sue, people talk about, for instance, they say dis-saving. They say that people don't save. One of the reasons the middle class isn't saving is they put a lot of money into their real estate. That's something they don't talk about. They talk about the negative side. He said the labor market is doing poorly. How could the labor market be doing poorly? You have unemployment is now so low, if it goes any lower, you're going to have fears of inflation. You pretty much already do. You have people trying to run over the borders, east, west, north, and south. That's how bad our labor market is. I mean, these arguments just don't hold any water, and they don't make any sense. Here's what you have to understand about the American left. If net national income increased 1,000%, 10 times tomorrow, they would be still demagoguing the issues and using the rhetoric of class warfare. Instead of talking about health insurance, they would then say, why doesn't everyone have $1 million annuity, or something like that?
So you think it's convenient?
Let me jump in here. I think I'm an economist. I look at the numbers, and if everything is so hunky-dory, why are people borrowing so much money? And clearly the need to borrow money is driven by the economic fundamentals.
No, it's driven
the
by
labor
greed.
market. The labor market growth has been fairly weak the last few years. We have the slowest employment growth that we had at any point since the Great Depression. Incomes are down. Benefits are down. If everything was going so well, why are companies, for instance, cutting back on health insurance coverage and cutting back on pension coverage? At the same time, people really don't have that much money to save.
No.
And housing saving does count in our savings. It is counted in our economy.
Here's why people are borrowing money on their credit cards, because they want more and more, because they're buying more and more, and because people have more and more.
But
now,
credit card debt is flat. I mean, that's really
if you want to talk about a cultural problem, if you want to talk about debt as an economic problem, it's a joke. If you want to talk about it as a cultural problem, maybe you have a point. People are buying more. Americans do spend too much. That's a different kind of problem, but that doesn't mean the country's poor. That doesn't mean the middle class is being squeezed. That means the middle class wants more and more, and indeed has more.
Well, this is really the question of what is want and what is need. Let me just make the first point. Credit card debt is actually flat for the last 5 years. It is really housing debt has been driving, and clearly people need a roof over their head. It's not necessarily a luxury item. And related to the bigger houses that people have to have in the urban centers where the jobs are, which has really been driving people into deeper debt. I mean, it's not really what people want. Because, I mean, what it ultimately means is as people are borrowing more money, they are left with fewer savings in case anything goes wrong.
I don't have the exact numbers in front of me.
Well, I do.
If you look back to the 1970s, the average size that an American family lives in today has increased 400 or 500%, and yet your analysis does not show that as being a wealthier society.
Let's bring it back to the key question, which is the president not being able to get credit, Jack. If the economy is doing so well, why is he not able to get credit? Now, I know one of the things that you think is that the media has an agenda, but there's the right media and the left media and the media in between, and he's still not getting any credit from almost any of them.
I do think, by and large, you do still have some substantial media bias, where the media has decided. Sure, you have more right-wing media in this country than you've ever had, but I still think the establishment media runs the game, and I think they have decided that they just don't like this president. But more than that is really a kind of cultural issue. We live in this age of massive negativity, and not only massive negativity, but we have no perspective. We don't realize how much better off the average worker is than 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago. There's no sense of that. The only thing that the left is concerned about are relative differences. They're worried about, as Margaret Thatcher used to say, the gap. That's all we think about. That's all we talk about. The fact that the entire economy is getting better, no one seems to care.
Christian?
Well, in absolute standards, clearly benefit coverage has been sharply declining. Families are financially a lot less secure than at any point in the last 15, 16 years. Clearly, debt boom that we've seen the last few years has left people less secure, less well prepared for anything going wrong.
I would love to have you back because there's a lot more to talk about, and I hope you both will rejoin us, especially with the presidential campaign getting underway. It'd be fascinating to continue the discussion. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you very
much. Very much for both of your opinions.
Coming up, a lot of the wireless phone companies